Thanks for joining us on 9 News Plus. I'm Chris Bianchi. Late on election night on Tuesday night, we spoke with both Colorado Republican analyst Kelly Maher as well as State Senator, Democrat Dominick Moreno for their takeaways from Tuesday night's election, which appeared to show big Democratic landslide victories. Should note, though, we still do not have the official results from several key races, including from the 3rd and the 8th congressional districts. That said, we spoke with both Kelly and Dominick about their top-line takeaways from Tuesday night's election.
Well, I guess the top-line takeaway looks to have been a big Democratic night. So joined here by State Senator Dominick Moreno. Thanks so much for joining us. And, of course, Colorado Republican strategist Kelly Maher as well. We'll get to both of you here in the next few minutes for both of your thoughts. But, Senator, I want to start with you and just your overall thoughts on what appears to have been a big night for the Democrats.
Yeah, I'm elated. You know, it's not what we were expecting. It's a midterm election with a Democratic president. Traditionally, that favors the opposite party. But it looks like Colorado has gone a different way and chosen to retain Democrats in power at pretty much every level. So it's a pretty exciting night to be a Colorado Democrat.
Kelly, I guess the question, and I see those giggles, I totally understand them, but I guess the question, and to be transparent about this, we're recording this late on Tuesday night, so the exact numbers, we don't have them yet. We don't have a call, for example, in the 3rd Congressional District or in the 8th, which appear to be highly competitive. But with that said, Kelly, it does appear to have been a big night for the Democrats. Where do Republicans go from here? What's the next step for you guys?
Well, I mean, I think we need to figure out these congressional races, right? So the first question is, and this is late Tuesday night, we're expecting that we're going to get a bunch more ballots dropped in about an hour. But you know, I mean, ultimately, I think the question is, what's going to happen with Boebert and what's going to happen with Barb Kirkmeyer? Mm-hmm. I still, at this point, am very hopeful, particularly about Barb Kirkmeyer. It looks like late numbers are going to be breaking for her particularly well. So, you know, knock on Formica, hopefully we'll have Barb Kirkmeyer as our congresswoman. But look, there's no way to couch this other than a question of just who are we, what are we doing here, and what do we stand for? Like these are core base questions, because what we have put together clearly is something that was largely rejected by the people of Colorado, regardless of what happens in Congress. And so I think that these are the kind of gut check moments where Colorado Republicans have to figure out what exactly it is that they want to say in terms of their sale to the voters.
And with that said, is there anything specific do you think that the Republicans left on the table in terms of the lack of messaging, especially on a statewide basis with what appears to be double-digit wins for all the Democrats, again, at the statewide level? Anything that was left on the table that maybe Republicans could have driven home a bit better?
Well, I mean, look, we saw a lot of soft money come in, right? A ton of soft money. And frankly, I think that what we saw tonight was we saw the beginning of Jared Polis's presidential race, right? I think that what we also saw is that he took a lot of his money and he ran up the score everywhere else in the ticket in the hopes that he has the earned media that he will invariably get over the next couple weeks, that the red wave came everywhere but Colorado, and that he's a different kind of Democrat. And when he runs for president, then he kind of has carved out that lane for himself. I know that he very much argues with that point and says he's not going to run for president, but like quite famously, we had Governor Hickenlooper, who was then running for president at the time, who said, hey, I'm definitely not going to run for Senate, and if I do, I wouldn't actually be that good at it. And, you know, I mean, he was half right, but now he's our U.S. Senator. So I think that we have a long record of people denying that they're running for things and then doing so anyway, and I think that's what we're seeing from Polis.
All right, so I guess, Dominick, what do you think the Democrats did right? What maybe specific message did the Democrats get across that maybe the Republicans did?
Yeah, what's so fascinating about the election result is that the Democrats and the Republicans were pretty evenly matched in terms of the vote share that they cast. But the fortune really lied with the unaffiliated voters. And the unaffiliated voters broke pretty significantly for Democrats. I think they responded to the message that Democrats are, making sure that we are addressing the inflationary, the cost of living issues that people are experiencing. We're trying to invest more in affordable housing. Free full-day kindergarten, which obviously Governor Polis ran on, was very popular. And so I think, they decided to retain Democrats in power because they saw real results coming out of the Capitol with Democrats being in the majority in the state legislature and Democratic Governor Jared Polis.
We'll put you both on the hot seat. Let's make
Yeah.
sure they're both hot. Yeah,
Yep.
both those seats are hot. All right. Is Colorado firmly a blue state, Senator?
I think tonight's results, you'd be hard to deny that Colorado has not solidified its status as a blue state. There are still fiscal issues that Coloradans go a different way on that you wouldn't think
Prop 121.
track with progressive politics. But the reality is, from a electoral politics standpoint, I think we're pretty solidly blue from now on.
Yeah, man, I'm with Dom on this one. He's right. This is it. Like I don't know how, every couple of years Republicans will say like, well, if only we had nominated X, or if only we had nominated Y, or like we can make the case with the unaffiliated voters, or Coloradans are historically ticket splitters. But we've seen huge seismic shifts in our population, and they're not Republican voters, at least for now. So.
I guess a question. So maybe looking at some races out east, and Republicans were quite competitive, for example, in states like New York. They didn't end up winning the gubernatorial race there, but there are perhaps precedents in other states for what would be defined as maybe blue states. I think everybody would call New York, for example, blue state. Even some inroads in California, where I think the Republicans are poised to win some pretty big congressional races, for example, out there. Again, not knowing what's going on in CD3, CD8 tonight. Kelly, are there lessons to be plucked from maybe some of those other states for the Republicans moving forward?
That's funny because I actually had a Democrat friend. I was going through the polling data with him, and we were kind of going back and forth. And he said, what is really the difference? And I think the states that you're talking about specifically, like, I don't know if things have, quote, gotten bad enough here, right? But when you have, like, Mario Lopez, a.k.a. A.C. Slater from Saved by the Bell, tweeting out things like, go buy groceries and fill your gas tank and then vote. You're like, this is the point where finally culture in places like New York and California are starting to shift on some of these issues, whether it's inflation or crime. And Colorado, in many ways, we're very fortunate, right? Like we have a very well educated population. We have fairly low unemployment. And so I would argue that, like, although many Republicans ran, including, Heidi Ganahl famously called herself a mad mom and ran on some of these issues, that maybe it's not as stark here as it is in places like New York and California, if that makes sense.
Dominick, what do you think of that?
Yeah, I would say, I do think you're seeing some inroads that Republicans can make on issues like crime, like inflation, like homelessness. But in Colorado, it just wasn't enough to get them over the finish line. In reality, I do think Democrats have responded to those issues by investing in affordable housing, by advancing people's tax refunds even sooner than they could have expected to combat some of those inflationary pressures. So you do see that I do think on a national level, that message, those issues have some resonance, could be a possible area where Republicans can concentrate in the future. But in Colorado, it didn't quite work because the Democrats have responded to those issues.
But of note, Democrats sent the Tabor refunds earlier after campaigning against them. So I'm just going to put that one out there.
And it's to the point that there are... Sorry, I'll let you respond.
No. I mean, Fair point. And Democrats have been clear, we're no fans of Tabor. But the reality is we saw people were hurting. We saw the inflationary pressures. And so we wanted to make sure that relief got to them as quickly as possible.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, look, that read is compassionate, right? Like, whether or not they actually wanted the refunds to exist in the first place is of question. But it did read as compassionate, and people got those checks, right as ballots were hitting.
And maybe it goes to show that they're, clearly, I think Coloradans, I don't think Kelly will disagree with me on this, clearly socially liberal, but there may be that fiscal streak that leans conservative. Is that the building block for the Republicans?
Well, I mean, look, it's late Tuesday night. We don't know yet, but the Libertarian could end up being the spoiler in the 8th Congressional District. We've always said that there's kind of this Libertarian streak through Colorado. I mean, the question is has the new population come in and overwhelmed it? I don't know.
And Dom, do you think that new population has done that?
I think that's right, and I do think that libertarian streak still exists in Colorado. I do think it's a bit of a roadmap, if I'm being honest, for the Republican Party. I don't think it's enough to, I think you really have to embrace that, we are okay with same-sex marriage. We are okay with abortion at some level. I think that because those are issues that the Colorado population has already decided on. Mm-hmm. They are firmly in the camp that most aligns with Democrats, and I think in order to be competitive, Republicans are going to have to let go of those social platform issues.
I guess I'll ask you both for final thoughts about the evening and for both your parties moving forward. And again, Dominick, as we discussed repeatedly here tonight, obviously what is clearly a big night for the Democrats. How do you keep that advantage moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, obviously tonight was great news, more than we could have ever hoped for. We keep building on that by continuing to advance candidates and do things at the Capitol and in policy that really respond to the issues that Coloradans are concerned about. I think we've managed to do that the past couple years under Governor Polis's leadership. We're going to continue to do that, and I think from now on, hopefully our majorities will only expand, and Coloradans will continue to reward us for the work that we put in to address their concerns.
And Kelly?
I mean, ultimately, I don't know how your majorities could expand any more than they did tonight. I mean, we're looking at some massive numbers. And so look, if I was a Democrat, I would be thrilled. But then in many ways, I feel like Democrats are going to end up being kind of like the dog that caught the car, right? Because now you have basically no check on the system. And so then the question is going to be like, how are Democrats going to negotiate within their own party and actually lead and actually legislate? Because, we have Jared Polis, who I think is trying to get the earned media of this presidential race that I think he's going to be on the path for. And he has done that largely by being kind of a libertarian-ish guy, right? Like largely kind of playing the middle on some of this stuff, particularly when you're talking about education and school choice. And, there was that photo from the Democrat Governors Association, and they were all lined up with masks on. And then there's like Jared Polis in the middle with his big smiling face, right? Like he, in many ways, has billed himself as the guy who kind of like swims against the stream. But now he's going to be faced with a stream and a current that is going to be overwhelmingly fast. Is he going to be able to continue to keep that persona?
I guess we'll find out over the course of the next few years, but we certainly found out a lot tonight, and kind of want to reemphasize for our viewers out there, we're taping this, and I'll read off the computer screen right here, 10:43 p.m. on election night on Tuesday, November the 8th. So again, the 3rd, the 8th congressional districts, and as well as a lot of the propositions are quite close, especially on alcohol, though that won't have as much of an impact, I think, on Democratic or Republican policy moving forward. But with that said, State Senator Dominick Moreno, thank you so much for joining us, as well as Colorado Republican strategist Kelly Maher. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.
Our pleasure.